Whoa ho, historians, welcome back, and what a wild ride it's been. From changing the calendar to the guillotine, to making a new religion to the guillotine. And guess what? My baguette still costs too much, and oh yeah, did I mention the guillotine? In revolutionary France, it wasn't easy to keep a cool head. In fact, you'd be lucky to have a head at all. In the aftermath of the Reign of Terror, the National Convention drafted yet another constitution with the goal of bringing stability to France. To run the army, they chose a guy who turned out to be one of the greatest military geniuses in world history. Today you'll meet him, and you may choose to call him a hero genius, or maybe a madman genius, but we'll leave that up to you. Our questions for today are: what factors led to the rise of Napoleon Bonaparte in France? What did Napoleon accomplish as first consul? And what were Napoleon's goals for France after becoming an emperor? And listen for clues that can help contextualize your response to this big picture question. How has ego, both individually and collectively, impacted the exercise of power in a society? Allons-y, historians! Napoleon Bonaparte was born in Corsica, a French-held Mediterranean island, in 1769. At the age of 9, the time when most of us are starting 4th grade, Napoleon entered military school. At 15, he transferred to École Militaire in Paris, an elite military school the likes of present-day West Point in the United States. Bonaparte struggled, graduating 42nd out of 58 students, but he excelled in one aspect: large-scale arms. He became an artillery lieutenant at age 16, all while devouring book after book on military strategy. Bonaparte was an army officer when the French Revolution broke out in 1789. As a reader of Voltaire and Rousseau, he supported political change. In the midst of its revolution, France was also at war with Austria, and Napoleon flew up the military ranks. He supported the Jacobins, who were becoming progressively more radical. When Jacobin leader Maximilien Robespierre fell from favor and was executed, Napoleon, who was viewed as his ally, was relieved of his command and temporarily imprisoned. However, when royalists began a revolt seeking to restore the monarchy, quick action was needed, and Napoleon commanded a unit that fired cannons on the royalists and stopped their advance. As a result, he saved the Republic and sealed his status as a war hero. Napoleon was made commander of the French army and added to his military legend, taking much of northern Italy from the Habsburgs and concluding a years-long war with Austria with a treaty. Brimming with confidence, he hatched a plan to expand French power and interrupt British influence in Ottoman-run Egypt. Channeling Alexander the Great, the 4th century BCE Macedonian leader who conquered Egypt and spread classical Greek culture, Bonaparte brought hundreds of French scholars on his campaign in 1798. When he arrived, he portrayed himself as a liberator and a bestower of the Enlightenment on the Egyptian people. Eventually, Bonaparte suffered a rare military defeat at the hands of an Ottoman-Briton coalition in Egypt and returned home. But the seeds of ambition found fertile soil in Napoleon, and his ego would grow. Meanwhile, the revolution lingered. By 1799, some began to think that a strong military dictatorship may be the only way to avoid what they feared: the restoration of the monarchy. Political leader Emmanuel Joseph Silla, author of What is the Third Estate, worked with Bonaparte to complete a coup d'état, or illegal seizure of power. In November 1799, they used the army to force out Directory members, thus dissolving it. In its place, a consulate was created with 3 people running the government. One, Napoleon, essentially completed a coup d'état of the coup d'état and emerged as first consul, effectively ending the French Revolution with a military dictatorship. So why would the French people, with their cries of liberty, equality, and fraternity, allow this to happen? First of all, the people had confidence in Napoleon. His leadership helped save the Republic, and his skill in negotiating peace treaties brought a measure of stability in an unstable time. It didn't hurt that Napoleon was also extremely charismatic. Despite his failure to recognize the will of the people, he was viewed as a champion of Enlightenment thinking. Bonaparte played on this and manipulated the narrative around him to give off the air that he was the poster boy for the new era of enlightened despots. Lastly, he wasn't exactly forthcoming with his plan. He embedded his power grab within a constitution, one that fulfilled many of the desires of French revolutionaries and was approved by the vote of the people. Napoleon thus diverted attention from his ambitions and eliminated any doubt, at least on paper, that the people wanted him as their leader. So, let's review what factors led to the rise of Napoleon Bonaparte in France. Thus began the consulate, which served as the French government between 1799 and 1804. As first consul, Napoleon tended to support laws that would uphold the ideals of the revolution and would also strengthen the central government. Yep, it was a throwback to absolutism. But remember, Napoleon fancied himself a modern, enlightened 19th century ruler, so he made changes and they seemed to make a lot of sense to the people. Focusing first on the economy, Napoleon created a national bank and an efficient method of tax collection. He allowed freedom of profession, smashing the old feudal guild system and paving the way for commercialism and industrialization. He tirelessly worked to end government corruption and inefficiency. He set up public schools, or lycées. Graduates were appointed to public positions based on merit rather than family ties. He created the Napoleonic Code, a uniform set of laws for France. While it built on the revolutionary ideal of individual rights, order and authority still ruled the day. The code did, however, eliminate a degree of inequality as it ensured that no one was exempt from taxes. While the revolution had reacted strongly to the power of the church and the First Estate, Napoleon tended to think it had gone too far. He made an agreement with the Pope that France would recognize Catholicism as the religion of the majority of French people while giving Napoleon control over some clergy appointments. During the consulate period, France settled into a general peace, along with the rest of Europe, with conflicts fizzling out. Review time. What did Napoleon accomplish as first consul? And now, let's get your opinion. Do you think Napoleon's time as first consul was positive or negative for France? In 1804, Napoleon convinced the people to make him emperor of a hereditary empire. The organization of the government remained largely unchanged, but Bonaparte brought back many aspects of the Ancien regime. For one, he insisted on being crowned emperor by the Pope, who was about to do so until Napoleon took the crown from the Pope's hands and put it on his own head. Noble titles were given to Bonaparte's family. Napoleon intensified his control of the narrative of his rule by increasing his censorship of the press while pumping out propaganda of his own in order to sway public opinion. So let's think about this. Why would a dictator seek to eliminate freedom of the press? Press freedom is a great enemy of a dictator, in Napoleon's time and today. When news outlets are permitted to uncover and broadcast incriminating information, the public is armed with knowledge. For Napoleon, staying in power meant controlling the information around him. When he became emperor, Napoleon's ambitions only grew. The specter of his idol, Alexander the Great, was always on the horizon. He wanted France, his France, to not only be the dominant European power but also rule over parts of the Americas. Let's review. What were Napoleon's goals for France after becoming emperor? From revolution to terror to, well, a little peace and stability for once. Would it last? Knowing Napoleon, probably not. The thing is with Napoleon, he's such a complex historical figure. This was a man who emphasized education, literacy, and self-determination, all while choking out any sign of democracy. Without his drive, ambition, and ego, he may not have saved France from the royalist rebels. But those same qualities also cost France tremendously. That's why one lesson won't suffice, and there's more to come. We're gonna take this show worldwide, folks, because history is everywhere.